Hello and welcome to the Scratch coding class. In this video I'm going to explain all the key concepts of these blocks on Scratch. If you haven't watched the other videos of the 7-minute series, make sure to do so, and the link is in the description, and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's get started. Okay, so there may be some puzzles in this video, so you can pause the video and have a think at those, but the first thing we're going to start with is variables. So let's get started. Okay, with variables, you can assign a value of a variable with another variable. So, for example, I made 3 variables here, variable 1, variable 2, and variable 3, and I could just make variable 2 equal variable 3. So I'm going to set these to different values. So I'm going to go variable 1 to 3, variable 2 to 7, and I'm going to go variable 3 to minus 10. And these values are shown on the top right corner of the screen. Now I can set a value to another value. So say I want to set v3 to v2. v3 will turn into 7 because v2 was already 7. And then I can go a bit more complicated. I can set v2 to v1. And then v2 would turn into 3. So first thing we did in that script was we set v3 to v2, which was 7, and then we set v2 to v1, which is now 3. And sometimes in hard scripts you can get quite a lot of these variables, so I'm gonna test you with a puzzle. Okay, so I've got a script here and the variables are set at 0, so what will be the values of the 3 variables? Well, pause the video and have a think. Okay, so now let's go over this. So first thing we always got to do is write down the values of the variables, because this can get very confusing. If I added more and more variables, it would just be very hard. So initially v1 is equal to 5, and then v2 is equal to v1. v1 was 5, so now v2 is also 5, and then v3 is v1 times v2. So v1 is 5 and v2 is 5, so that would be 25. It would be 5 times 5. Now it says change v1 by v3. So now you're basically saying v1 is basically v1 plus v3, which in this case is 30 now. v1 is now 30. And then v2, it says, is v3 minus 5. So v2 is v3, which is 25, minus 5, which is now 20. And these are the initial values now. I think v1 is going to be 30, I think v2 is going to be 20, and v3 is going to be 25. Let's find out. Yep, I was correct. So remember, you always got to start. You can't just skip to here because you won't know what you're doing. You can change the variable. You always start at the start of the script and write down your variables like I just did. Right, here's another one. Okay, pause the video and have a think. Okay, this one's actually quite difficult, so what we're going to do is again write down all the information we're given. So v1 is v4. v4 is already at 0, so v1 is still 0. Then it goes v2 is equal to 8. So we write that down. Then it says v1 is equal to v3 plus v2 plus 2. So v1 is now equal to 0 because v3 has not changed, it's still at 0. And plus v2, which is now 8, so I'm going to write 8 plus 2, which is now 10. So v1 is now 10. And then it goes v4 is equal to 29. I write that down. v4 is equal to 29. Then now it says v4 is equal to v2 divided by 2. Here I wrote v2 is equal to 8. So now v4 is equal to 4. Right, and then it says if v3 is greater than 10, then or else. So v3 is still 0. I haven't written down v3, it hasn't changed, it's still at 0. So we are following the else bit, and the else bit says change v4 by v2 plus v4. So v4 is now equal to v2, which is 8, plus v4, which is 4. And then it's a change, remember, so it just added that on to v4. So here we are with this information. So I think v1 is equal to 10, and then v2 is still at 8. And then I think v3 is still 0 because v3 hasn't changed. And then v4 is equal to 16. Right, let's see if I am correct. I am correct. So, in this very, very hard code, you have to write everything out. Well done if you got that right. And if you didn't, don't worry. This is pretty advanced stuff. And we're just going to move on to something else now. Okay, so we're going to move on with lists. So pause the video and have a think. What would this script give out? Okay, so first thing, we always need to write out the list, just like we did with variables, similar with lists. So delete all numbers, do nothing in numbers, add 50 to numbers, so we add 50. Then it says add 70, so we put 70, and then delete number 1 of numbers, and 50 is the first item of numbers, so we simply delete it. Insert 30 at 1 of numbers, so 30 will be number 1 now, and then it says replace item 1 of numbers with 37, so it turns into 37. Add length of numbers plus 10 to numbers, so there are 2 length, so we got to add 10 to that, that is 12, so we add number 12 to numbers. And this is what you should have got. Let's see if I'm right. Yes, I am correct. So now let's move on to something else. Okay, so here I have a script, and this is motion, and I want you to think and pause the video. Where would this sprite end up? What would be the coordinates of the sprite if it moved? And remember, X is left to right and Y is up and down. Okay, so similarly to what we've been doing, again we got to write out the coordinates. So it says go to x0 and y0, and it also says point in direction 90, which is already pointing in, so we don't need to worry about that. Then it says move 20 steps, so if you are pointing right and you move 20 steps, the x coordinate will go up. So the x is now 20, y is 0. Then it says point in direction 0, so it's facing up, and then it says move 10 steps. So the y is going to increase this time. And then it says change y by 10, so we're going to change the y by another 10, making it 20. If direction is equal to 0, then, and yes, the direction is 0, it's still pointing up, set x to 120, and that is what I think it's going to be. So let's see where the sprite ends up. Yep, 120x and 20y. Well done if you got that right. If you didn't, then remember, make sure to write everything out like we've been doing with variables and lists. And now let's move on. Okay, the final thing I want to do in this video is cloning. So what we're going to do is look at the script. It says when green flag click, wait 1 second, create a clone of myself. When I start as a clone, go to random position, wait until key space is pressed, and then delete the clone. So I'm going to try this here. What one is the clone? Is it this one or is it this one? Pause the video and have a think. Well, the answer is this one, because this sprite was always at 0, 0. As you can see down here, it says x equals 0 and y equals 0. So the original sprite will always be at x equals 0 and y equals 0. But this is a clone script for the sprite. So for the clone script, it says go to random position. So it went down there. And then when I click the space key, it disappears. But this sprite does not disappear because it is not the clone. It's the original sprite. So make sure if you want that sprite to hide, then you can use the hide block as you see in looks here. So I think that's going to be it for this video. So thank you so much for watching it. Make sure to watch the next video. It's going to be every single scratch block explained in 7 minutes. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out all my other videos, and leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. And I will see you soon. Bye bye.